Welcome to Vitamin B with Mohana. This is where we help you take control of your well-being. My guest today is Dr. Nimesh George, a practicing psychologist who specializes in emotions-focused therapy. But today, he's joining me to talk about the harsh realities of loneliness. What is loneliness? And loneliness, which has gripped well over 30% of adults around the world. Did you know that?
Everyone is at risk for loneliness.
How does anyone realize that they're actually feeling lonely?
Memories that we're carrying with us. Memories where we were abandoned, where we were not listened to. Avoidance, that is suppression of your emotions, suppression of your need.
Life is not easy. Life is about being happy, but at the same time, the duality is that you have to be tough enough to deal with, your issues as well effectively, right?
Simplest way to understand is ask yourself if you're happy. It's a silent killer that is lurking among us, but we are not aware of it.
People teach you to be ashamed, right, of yourself. That the language that is used from parents towards children, largely, or teachers towards students, is you have to be ashamed.
Toxic individualism intimidates the other person. I believe is loneliness always starts in families. The need for intimacy, when that need is not satisfied or addressed, you feel lonely. Let's ask ourselves this question. Did parents encourage children to have friends?
Do anything inside the house. One of the ironies is when the world is outside, what is the need for parents to always make us think we have to stay indoors, right?
The ground reality between a couple is very different from what society has devised as what.
Parenting is a reflection of your ego. A lot of things that you tell your children are what you want and probably not even the child needs.
Having meaningful relationship is equivalent to not being lonely. Audit your relationship, audit the loyalty that you show to other people.
Now when I think about it, it's such an obvious sign. It's just that we're not paying attention to each other, right?
I have to be the perfect friend, I have to be the perfect child.
Who actually is most lonely today? As we grew up, we were made to be tougher.
Is being the center of attention, is more expressive, more assertive. Don't presume that their life is fine. Forcefully make them participate in dance competition or public-facing tasks is not a survival or evolutionary need.
Join us as we explore the dimension of loneliness, understand it, and also look at the profound effects it has on our social, mental, and physical well-being. So sit back, relax, and join me at Vitamin B with Mohana. Hi Vitamin B community. We have always been very bullish about your health and your well-being. And I'm super happy today to be launching the very first merchandise which I know will make a difference to each one of us, which is the Vitamin B Granola. This granola has been in the making for over 2 years now, with our core team having it on a daily basis. So we felt it was important to spread the awareness and ensure each one of you has the opportunity to taste it and improve your health. Get your first pack, order now, and we are available in Bangalore, where we have a number of customers who have already promised us and validated that this product is truly nutritious. So check out the comments box where you have an opportunity to place your order in the link provided, or reach us on Instagram DM to get your first bag of Vitamin B Granola. I'll see you soon. Stay tuned, be healthy, and be confident. Hi Nimesh, welcome to Vitamin B with Mohana.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's my first podcast. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's great. And that's exactly what the platform's all about, where experts like yourself with so much of knowledge and experience can get a platform like this to share such important things in the world that are happening, right, to people and human beings at large. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually meeting at a strange time when there's so many good things around us. Society has progressed so much. We are living in an urban setup in a city where there's access to so many things. Things are actually supposed to be easier in life. But on the other end of the spectrum, you also have so many problems with people's health, people's well-being, and mental health.
Yeah.
It's a very strange dichotomy that we are actually living in, right? And we're going to be talking about loneliness today. How do you feel about it? How are you feeling about what we are all experiencing as human beings today?
I think a lot of good things that are happening in terms of the experiences that we can all look up to.
Yeah.
But also changing times brings along with it difficulties and challenges as a society.
Yeah.
And loneliness is one of the major issues that we are facing as a community, as a society. But for me, I see it more on a personal level,
Yeah.
at the level of a family, at the level of friendship, at the level of our immediate spaces that we are all a part of. And it's quite a challenge, and we all need to start engaging in a serious discussion about it.
Yeah.
And I believe this is a platform where such a discussion can happen.
Yeah. I think when you look centuries back, right, when man had his belly filled with food, he started thinking esoterically. And that's when, especially when you look at ancient India, you look at arts, you look at sculptures, you look at temples, you look at so many different things which were so beautifully done. They actually spent time once they had money, once they had, like, the basic urges and needs taken care of, they used their mental framework very differently. But I'm not really sure that's something that's happening today, right? We are doing a lot in tech, but tech has cybercrime. Everything today has a huge dichotomy, right? That we are looking around. So it's a bit troubling, and that's why I feel like topics like what we'll engage in will really help people navigate certain problems as well, right?
Right, right. No matter how much advancement we have made in terms of science or art, culture, I believe our social needs and emotional needs have always remained the same. So evolution and nature loves people to live in groups. It has multiple purposes attached to it. It ensures safety and survival, perpetuation of the species, reproduction, and the adult taking care of the offspring. So evolution and nature pushes people to live in groups, live together. But then what's the reason for people to live together? And that is what I believe the most pleasurable experience, pleasurable interpersonal experience we can have is a sustained experience of safety and calmness. And people are capable of imparting that safety and calmness to each other.
Yeah.
A kind face matters, a soothing voice matters, tone matters, being heard matters, being seen matters. So evolution pushes us together, and people have a reason to live together.
Yeah.
When that particular need is not fulfilled, need to belong somewhere, need for safety, need for connection, closeness, proximity, we experience an emotional state, an unpleasant emotional state, and that's called loneliness.
Yeah.
And that has not changed, and it will not change. I don't believe it will ever change as long as we keep evolving.
So loneliness is here to stay. Is that what we're saying?
The need to be with people is here to stay.
Yeah.
If we are not able to fulfill that need, address that need, restructure and reimagine our relationships, loneliness is here to stay.
Yeah.
We have to adapt.
I mean, I couldn't agree more, because sometimes we forget to understand how we're designed. We're designed to be appreciated. When you see babies, it's such an overstated example, right?
Right.
Children, small kids want you to clap, right? And when you clap, they get so excited about the smallest activities they do. The same thing goes away when you grow up. So when you look at even a corporate setup or your workspace, people are leaving more and more because of lack of appreciation. So similarly, I think by design, we are human beings who want to be with each other, but we're slowly losing the skill to sort of engage effectively when we're physically together as well.
Agreed to a large extent. The need to be valued, the need to be appreciated, acknowledged is a very important need within us. And it is much more evident in children because they are not able to regulate themselves or inform themselves. But the need, like the need to belongingness, is also something that is incorporated within us by nature and evolution, and it's also here to stay.
Yeah.
So as we progress into our adulthood, it's only a matter of balance.
Yeah.
The self and the other, self-validation but that doesn't mean that we'll not stop expecting others to validate and appreciate us. It's not a problem at all, as long as we maintain a balance and other people acknowledge that it is important to appreciate this person also.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong about it.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me, what are the signs of loneliness? How do I know I'm lonely, or how does anyone realize that they're actually feeling lonely?
I think the simplest way to understand is ask yourself if you're happy. If you're not happy and if you're in this chronic state of sadness, something missing, something empty, and it's a very isolating sadness because every emotion is energy plus motion. It drives us towards our need. So I'm sad, but at the same time, I'm not seeking someone's support or comfort or advice or guidance or just someone just to listen. Then I'm in an isolated state of sadness, and that's one of the hallmarks or characteristic features of loneliness. But there are other features also. You're constantly anxious. Something is wrong. You're tense, the body is tense, you're nervous. Um, Temperamentally, if you see, there's a lot of shyness and inhibition which keeps getting stronger and stronger. It's not changing. If you see the other common constructs that we all relate to, self-esteem, self-efficacy, it's relatively low. You don't have a lot of trust and safety in yourself. Socially, if you see, you're more isolated, you're withdrawn, you're not taking the initiative to engage with other people, you're not able to organize people and activities. When it comes to self, we doubt ourselves a lot. We doubt whether we'll be accepted by other people. There's a lot of fear of negative evaluation. People are going to look down upon me and people are going to judge me. And that particular information that I bear no significant social value is going to spread around, and a lot more people are going to keep looking down upon me. Now, this is very true. For me, true is what we feel, not what we think. So it might seem irrational, but if you are feeling it, then the body is considering that as the truth. And body is reacting accordingly. So there's a lot of self-doubt. If people get to know me, they'll reject me. No one will like me. Everyone will leave me and go. And that the foundation of loneliness is these memories that we are carrying with us. Memories where we were abandoned, where we were not listened to, where we were not important to significant attachment figures. And we keep thinking and believing about ourselves and about other people using this bunch of core memories as our reference point. And basically, it is a profound sense of abandonment that we experienced at some point and we presume will keep happening to us.
So I'm glad that you also defined it. I would have asked that later as well. But it's great to sort of understand that what ultimately a person thinks of loneliness is, I feel left out and I don't know what to do about it. So I sit alone. Physically I'm sitting alone. Mentally I'm feeling lonely, right? But the signs are very interesting. A number of them I would have not guessed as well. Because you need to be so aware of your own feelings to even realize that, hey, this is leading to a state of, ultimately being lonely, and build those abilities or those skills to sort of navigate, right? So that's very interesting. But tell me, what is happening in the world? Have number of cases increased over decades, so that our viewers get an understanding of the size of the problem around loneliness?
It has exponentially increased because the social structures are evolving. So a lot of importance is being attached to loneliness by World Health Organization. They're coming out with numbers. They're coming out with a lot of research. A lot of studies are being done across the world. Not much in our spaces, Asian countries. So more importance needs to be given in that space. But the governments in US and UK have come out with task forces to understand, to study, and tackle loneliness. It's a silent epidemic. It's a silent killer that is lurking among us, but we are not aware of it. So this is of utmost importance for us to address and tackle at the earliest.
Yeah. So, I mean, just off my mind, right?
Yeah.
Mostly Western societies are known to be individualistic. They're not very community driven to the degree that Eastern societies are, right?
Yeah.
So, does that contribute to why incidences are greater in the West? Or am I imagining that people here might not be coming out as much to talk about it, but they still are feeling lonely?
I strongly believe that there is as much loneliness in Asian or Southeast Asian countries as much there is in other societies. Um, I see a lot more discourse and conversations happening around intimacy, the need for intimacy. When that need is not satisfied or addressed, you feel lonely. I see more such conversations happening in Western societies rather than our society. So at least people are coming out and saying this is important too. I think it's a slightly a false perception we have that Western societies are more individualistic and we are not. Um, at the heart of it, as long as we're acknowledging the need for intimacy, and we are talking about it and we're educating people that this is important too, along with all the other individualistic factors. No problem. It has to be a balance. As long as a discussion is happening, we can do something about it. If people are not forthcoming about it, hesitant about it, stigmatized it, perceived it as a sense of weakness, then we're going to continue struggling with loneliness and its monstrous effects on our mental well-being and physical health.
Yeah. And, I'll come to it, but I'm so tempted to ask you at this stage itself, right, that is this also a generational issue? Because as we grew up, we were made to be tougher, right? So there are a lot of things that what people talk today, younger kids talk today, I would have never imagined that to be an issue. And there are loose terminologies. I'm depressed, I'm this, I'm that, I'm lonely. Should we also help people understand that life is not easy? Life is about being happy, but at the same time, the duality is that you have to be tough enough to deal with, your issues as well effectively, right?
As long as we have existed, we have always felt the need to live in groups and with a sense of belongingness, safely, calmly, and in close proximity. No one can debate whether you were allowed to express that particular need or the pain that comes out of not being able to fulfill that need. That is a lot of times misconstrued as toughness. That is not toughness. That is avoidance. That is suppression of your emotions, suppression of your need. So those people are necessarily not tough. They're just being driven forward by the fear of not being accepted by people around them if they express their need or feelings. I'm happy to see younger people being more courageous enough to come forward and say, you know what, I'm lonely, I'm sad, I feel left alone, I'm scared people are judging me. That is not weakness at all. We should encourage that. That takes a lot of courage, and vulnerability should be accepted. It should be normalized, and let's stop giving a lot of weightage to the pseudo toughness our generation grew up with. It has only led to more pain and suffering, silent pain and suffering in terms of loneliness.
Yeah. Another podcast we did, we talked about parenting and, how children actually go through a lot of trauma, right? What about emotional health of children itself? And it's so true because in an Indian context, particularly, we have a lot of tough love, right? And we're not allowed generally to express and, voice out. A lot of it is changing. So I love that. I love that point that you mentioned, right? And I want to sort of spend time with you now to understand socially all around us so much is going on, right? There's multitude of things, So, what is driving to cause loneliness in people from a social or from just generally when you look around? What's causing loneliness ultimately?
From a sociological perspective, which I'm not an expert in, the changes are happening in our social structures, and that can weaken the bonds which are required to nourish this particular need we are born with, the need for intimacy. And changes are happening in terms of employment opportunities, empowerment, education, mastery of skills, um, changes happening specific to gender.
Yeah.
Women are more empowered. Uh, Men are still illiterate about intimacy. A lot of changes are happening, and a lot of things are not changing. From my personal perspective, I'm bringing in more what I specialize in or what I research in. Slightly sociological, but little bit of psychology also.
Yeah.
Here. Migration.
Migration.
We are migrating away from our families.
Yeah.
Earlier on, I don't have concrete data to prove this, but when I see migration, the whole family used to migrate.
Yeah.
But now one member is migrating. And we can't stop it. Climate change has a role in it. Employment, financial opportunities has a role to play in it, and no one can stop the migration of people. So the distance from relationships and families are increasing. Number one. Number two point is a lot of our resources, social resources, are being displaced, and social relationships or our personal friendships are hard-earned resources. This doesn't develop in one day or 2 days. Years and years to mold and to preserve and to sustain your relationships. They are getting displaced partially because of migration also. So friends are getting married, people are moving to different states, people are moving abroad. So we are losing our resources. Um, Number three is dysfunctional families. I believe if a person is struggling with intense amount of loneliness, what I believe is loneliness always starts in families. When parents fail to provide a safe space or safe connection to the child, and children doesn't feel a sense of belongingness, safety, calmness, when they feel that they were not important enough, when they were not seen enough, they carry that loneliness within them. And that loneliness can spill over into your other social spaces, even when you're an adult, even when you have all the resources, you're educated, you have financial resources, you're living by yourself, you have all the resources possible, but still somewhere, somehow, this loneliness that you felt long back is being perpetuated again and again. And we need to look inside, like, why is this happening? Why am I still using these memories, my early experiences as a reference point? But more than that, let's ask ourselves this question. Did parents encourage children to have friends?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
They, at every given point, when I remember, at least when I was little,
Mm.
they would, my memories are study, don't go out,
Right.
do everything inside the house. One of the ironies is when the world is outside, what was the need for parents to always make us think we have to stay indoors, right? So it's true what you're saying.
The
Yeah.
culture of forming friendships,
Mm.
relying on friends for emotional support, allowing these relationships to flourish, to evolve. If that wasn't encouraged, you are not aware of something nagging within you. That is, I want to be with someone else also. But it's nagging, but I don't know what to do about it. Early experiences with our parents, it's not just a matter of providing food, shelter, and clothing at all. It's not just about satisfaction of physical needs. It is mostly about providing the child a map, a template about themselves, an idea of themselves, an idea of other people. Who are safe? Who are not safe? What are my needs? Where do I go for my needs? Whom do I approach? This map is something that parents have to realize that you're handing over to your children. And the map determines whether we do enough to address our own needs. Forget addressing, at least to start being aware that I like this.
Yeah.
And that map, if it's flawed and skewed in favor of individualism or socially desired attributes, success, physical attractiveness, resourcefulness, confidence, and then we are not going to be able to be aware and address our needs for intimacy, needs for safety, need for calmness, to understand that someone else can make me feel calm also. I don't have to do everything all by myself all the time. I don't have to be that tough. Don't have to take up all the responsibility all the time. Template is what a parent passes on to children.
Yeah.
If you see the social formula for ensuring a successful relationship, what are the factors that they consider? Again, it is the socially desired attributes, individualistic factors, which are good. I am not saying they are bad. I am not invalidating them at all. They are important. But we need to balance individualism and intimacy. We need to have more conversations, and we need to include that both individualism and intimacy leads to a successful relationship. Sensitivity, empathy, vulnerability, sentimentality, empathy, listening, communication. These are variables that needs to be equally emphasized by the society. Um, if you see, if you break down the entire structure, you start with society, you have community, you have families, friendships. At the base of it, let's say a couple. Any couple can be the same gender or a different gender, no problem at all. People need to understand that the ground reality between a couple is very different from what society has devised as what ensures the success of a relationship. The last 2 points that I want to mention are divorces that are happening. And I'm somewhere happy it's a lot of it is happening. From a sociological perspective, from a personal perspective, I'm a great advocate for love and belongings. I tell people to bond together and have fun. From a personal perspective, I feel heartbroken when I see my clients separate.
Yeah.
From a sociological perspective, I'm happy because all the social changes, reimagining social structures, when it happens, it brings a lot of chaos and pain within it. And I think we are going through such a phase where we are reimagining our social.
So, from a sociological perspective, you're happy that
It's happening because we are reimagining these social structures. From a sociological perspective or from a social perspective, I'm happy it's happening because it's time that we reimagine social structures and what works in relationships and social structures. It has to be an equal ratio of individualism and intimacy. Couples, why are relationships breaking down? Because individuals are at conflict, and they are not able to bring in an adequate amount of intimacy. Another factor that I have observed that's happening is people who are about 30 struggling to find a partner.
Yeah. Oh my God. That actually, I would have thought that's the first thing you would have probably mentioned, right? But you beautifully have articulated from a macro perspective to getting down into what are the exact issues, right? Everybody is on a dating app, but no one. It's the same crowd for years, right? That remains on a digital platform. It's really terrifying to see that people are struggling to meet, someone suitable even to stay on for a few years, if not a few months, right?
Agreed. And loneliness brings along with it a lot of fear and dread. And going back to that point which we were talking about, people above their 30 struggling to find the partners. I think it's a lack of balance between individualism and intimacy that's creating this problem. So when two people are meeting, they're talking a lot about individualism, individual factors. They're not conveying enough information with regards to intimacy. This is what I want from you, and this is what I'm ready to offer you.
Yeah.
There's always an imbalance that I'm seeing. Toxic individualism intimidates the other person. You keep talking about who you are, what you have achieved, how successful you are, which are all important and I appreciate it. I have no right to sit down here and say they are not important. They are important. But what's equally important is intimacy, need for belongingness. We need to start talking more. We need to start expressing that more. We need to use that as a parameter also while searching for partners. And that change has to happen. For example, examples of toxic individualism is, let's say, certain gender-based beliefs we have. I'm a man. I can't talk about my feelings. I can't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I am bringing food to the table. What more do you want? I've seen the other extreme also, toxic intimacy. My partner can sit at home and play video games, or appeasement, conferring benefits after benefits, people pleasing, excessive responsibility taking. After a point, the imbalance is seen and understood, and the relationship is falling apart. What we need is a balance between individualism because everyone is being empowered.
And
Everyone
that
is
leads to
educated.
loneliness ultimately, right?
When the
All of
relationship
this. Yeah.
breaks, when intimacy is not addressed,
Yeah.
then loneliness is felt.
Yeah.
And individualism is good as far as partner selection.
Yeah.
Evaluation, please bring in intimacy and the small things that you know you enjoy, but you're anxious about expressing it because I might be perceived as weak. For example, I love conversations.
Yeah.
Not many people are going to say that.
So I want to move to understanding, is there a personality or genetic predisposition to feeling lonely? And I think that's very important for people to understand that it need not be just a social factor or an external factor causing it. It could be certain cases where you have a tendency to feel lonely and you need to know that it exists as well, right?
Let me make it very clear. Loneliness is not the absence of people. Loneliness is the absence of a need not being fulfilled. That's a need for. So you can have hundreds of people around you and you can feel lonely in the crowd. Is there a genetic predisposition which makes us vulnerable or more at risk for loneliness? Yes.
Okay.
Two factors. One is introversion. The social tendency to be a little withdrawn and enjoy activities which are more solitary in nature. That makes us vulnerable in different ways. But more than introversion, extroversion, which I hear a lot of people talking about, neuroticism is the key point in understanding loneliness or what makes one vulnerable or at risk to loneliness. Emotional instability is neuroticism. You're moody, you're not able to regulate your mood, you're hostile, you're irritated, annoyed. Other people misunderstand the same. Or he has a lot of attitude, or she doesn't like to be social. Or this term, antisocial, we should not be using such terms at all. They are struggling and they are struggling to communicate what they need, or basically they are scared. Sensitivity. So the threshold to feel an overwhelming emotional reaction, be it anything, simple as being fear. I'm scared of being out there. The threshold is very low. So something small can trigger an intense emotional reaction. And for people who are neurotic or introverted, it takes a long time for them to come back to the baseline.
Okay.
So in that space or in that time period to come back to the baseline, you're feeling a lot more isolated and you're losing out opportunities to connect more with people and express yourself.
So just a basic way to understand is, if I'm naturally someone who's very moody, who's already an introvert, who doesn't mix with too many people by nature, and all the other things that you talked about, I may have a tendency to feel lonely faster, right?
Okay. More at risk.
Okay, yeah.
More at risk.
More at risk, yeah.
That doesn't have to define your story. Fortunately, if we have caregivers and parents who introduce the idea of regulation. Regulation is something we can pick up in our adult life also. If you are well regulated, we can balance these emotional upheavals we feel inside and express what we need rather than being overwhelmed by these negative emotions or the memories that are created in the space when we struggle. All those memories are going back into our reference points and perceiving the world as a more dangerous place, or people will reject me. So regulation is a key point. Parents have to take more effort to understand the temperament of the child. You don't have to forcefully change an introverted child at all. Let the child be herself or himself or themselves. No problem. Earlier, when I used to talk to parents, not that I work with parents and children a lot, but generally when I used to talk to parents, I used to tell them two things. Let them read whatever they want. Ensure that they have a good handwriting. Now I tell them only one thing. Encourage friendships. Because friendships will help them regulate themselves. Empathy has a direct impact on our physiology. It calms our heart down. It switches off the alert danger systems in our brain. Calms our stomach down. So once they start experiencing that safety and calmness, they will automatically seek more such friendships.
That's beautiful, Nimesh.
Yes. To perform in front of your guest is not a survival need. To forcefully make them participate in dance competition or public facing tasks is not a survival or evolutionary need. Friendships and relationships are an evolutionary need. Encourage that. Encourage the friends to come over. Encourage them to make more friends. Social spaces, sports, small clubs, chess clubs, or math club. Encourage those activities, and they will find their way about in making more relationships and understanding relationships.
A lot of times, if we just take a step back, we understand that parenting is a reflection of your ego. A lot of things that you tell your children are what you want and probably not even the child needs, right?
Right.
So, what I want to talk about, and I want us to really get an understanding at a very high level, who actually is most lonely today? Is it the younger folks? Is it the adults? The older folks? What's going on in that space, Nimesh?
Well, if you see an age-specific categorization or trying to understand it from that perspective, there are conflicting results which are being shown by studies. The WHO says that 10% of adolescents, this was about last year when they published the prevalence rates of adolescents feel lonely, and about 25% of adults in different categories feel lonely. But there was a huge analysis of all the studies done around loneliness in the last 25 years, and it showed a bell-shaped result. That is, loneliness increases when you're young, stabilizes
when you're young,
adolescent, when you're just entering your adulthood. It stabilizes during the adulthood and the middle adulthood, and again starts escalating during the older years. But more than age-specific analysis of loneliness, I would prefer a more contextual understanding. What is the context that is leading to loneliness? So anyone at any point in the age is vulnerable to feeling lonely. And the changing social structure and the lack of discourse on intimacy is definitely contributing to it.
So how does it manifest? If you can give us one sign, okay? So for an easy understanding for the viewer, for an adolescent, right? What are one or two, ways it manifests? And for an adult, and then for an older person, how does it actually sort of come out, right?
I don't see a lot of differences, but one thing I see is across ages, withdrawal. You withdraw from social spaces and you increase the percentage of your solitary activities. You're not enjoying it. You're avoiding the risk of being rejected or negatively evaluated in a social space. A lot of people say, I enjoy being by myself. As long as there's a balance, I have no issues. Otherwise, you're not enjoying, you're fleeing a possibly dangerous situation where you might be excluded. So withdrawal is something that I see, which you can relate to a person across the
But this is so
lifespan.
important, Nimesh, because
Right.
if I have someone in my family or
Mm,
friends
mm,
who's
mm.
displaying that, right, which is
Right.
not natural, it's growing, it's so
Right.
important for me to know that this is a sign so that I can
Absolutely.
lean in to help them, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's withdrawal. And if you want to see the differences among age groups, look at the functioning, the decline in functioning.
Mm.
So, a child or an adolescent may suddenly start performing poorly in academics, may suddenly stop participating in extracurricular activities, may stop attending family events. So something is wrong there, and we need to speak to the child about it. Um, the functional deficiencies are not seen a lot in adults because they're driven to engage in those survival activities.
Yeah.
They have to keep earning, they have to keep working, otherwise, they're not going to sustain themselves. But if it becomes pathological, that is loneliness plus mild to moderate level of depression, then you will start seeing the functional deficiencies also. People are taking leave, they are not attending work, unreachable for their friends, unreachable to their families, not saying what's wrong with them, but you have this uh, disturbing silence that they display. It's a red flag. We have to help that person.
Yeah.
Old age, there are a lot of risk factors attached to old age. Health problems, loss of partners, reorganizing families, lack of resourcefulness, lack of financial income. That's why it's important to save. All these factors can contribute to loneliness and a great amount of agonizing struggle during old age, the latter part of your life.
Yeah, so essentially, if I'm taking away what you're saying is it's touching everyone,
Everyone is at risk for
but
loneliness.
the reasons vary.
Reasons
Evidently, they
vary,
they vary, right?
context vary, reasons
Yeah.
vary, and the functional deficiencies that they may display vary.
Functional is daily activities.
Daily
Yeah,
activities,
yeah,
work, studies,
yeah.
social activities for old age citizens, members of old age. They are expected to attend a lot of activities and socialize a lot more, which they enjoy. But you suddenly see them withdrawing and just sitting at home, failing health. It actually exacerbates their health concerns.
Yeah, of course. And it's when I think about it, it's such an obvious sign.
Right.
It's just that we're not paying attention to each other, right? And I guess there's a lot of work to be done there. But Nimesh,
Okay.
I want to also talk about something very important, which typically you don't hear about very easily. Okay,
Right.
everyone says, "Hey, loneliness, so it's mental health, right? What's happening with your emotional state, mental health?" But tell me, what happens to your body, your physical health, if you're actually lonely?
Every system can break down if you're under sustained experience of loneliness, right? From your cardiovascular, your gastro health, your muscle strength, immunity. The blood is flooded with stress hormones all the time. You see, how does it impact our physical health? Any uncertainty, any difficulty in predicting our circumstances, any threat, any insight, any time our need is not being fulfilled, emotional need is not fulfilled, or there's a threat to that particular need, is perceived as a threat by the body. And there's just one way the body reacts to a threat: switch on the alert, the danger system in the brain, the sympathetic system, nervous system, and pump ourselves with adrenaline. Body just is inundated with adrenaline, and all the systems are overworking, expecting some danger, imminent danger that's going to happen. Stress response is a normal response as long as it is time bound. It has to be switched off after some point, like your geyser. When it is switched on all the time, that's when all the systems are overwhelmed, and that's one of the major reasons for cardiovascular problems that we are facing, coronary related issues that we are facing at this point. So any emotional trigger, any emotional threat will be perceived by the body as a danger to our welfare, danger to our well-being, and the common or the general um, responses switch on the stress hormones. It's actually the body is trying to drive the person to do something. It doesn't understand social anxiety. It doesn't understand I'm scared of being negatively evaluated or I can't talk to a person. The standard response is switch on the alert, pump in the stress hormones. All the systems are overwhelmed, and over a period of time, it results in physical problems and health issues. And this is the same with stress also, stress at workplaces.
Yeah, really rich, great perspectives that you're sharing with all of us. I also want to sort of come to the next, aspect of all of this, right? We know there's so much of impact because of loneliness, and it's really, really prevalent. What are some of the most easy, hopefully easy coping strategies that one can really use, and sort of help them come out of the situation if they are actually lonely?
Number one is awareness of our body. Our emotional struggles, I believe, and there are a lot of studies to back it up also, lives in different parts of our body. So some people feel this heaviness in their chest. Some people constantly feel the pain in the shoulders, uneasy stomach, trembling feet and legs. The more you develop awareness of your body, the more control that you have.
Also, loneliness can have those kind of physical symptoms, is it?
Absolutely.
So that's psychosomatic, right? Essentially, that your body part is taking the pain, right?
Mind-body connection. Emotional pain has a huge imprint on our body. Loneliness is a form of emotional pain. So, more you're aware of your body, the more you're able to regulate yourself, the more you're able to understand the struggle. Most importantly, I want this, I like this, I need this, and direct ourselves um, towards that particular goal or need. Awareness is important. Regulation is important because if you're going to a social space and if you're anxious, you're nervous, you're being a little hostile, irritated, you're more likely to be excluded. In you are anxious because you are scared of negative evaluation and you're lonely, but you're more likely to be excluded, and it's not easy to change the entire social space of society and start telling everyone to be kind and empathetic. It's difficult to bring about such changes on such a large scale level. So you have to do your bit before going into a social space. Do a little bit of regulation, breathing exercise, walk. If you're having a bad day, spend some time to regulate yourself before going and meeting someone. So regulation, befriending your body, awareness of oneself, awareness of one's needs, are is the first step that I would recommend in terms of coping and elevating loneliness. But then I like to differentiate it based on your temperament. Introverts have to do a lot differently, and extroverts have to do differently. Please, it's not that extroverts' life is easy and they're having it all fine. No, they have their own set of problems also.
So true, yeah.
So we have to be more empathetic on that particular issue. Don't presume just because a person is laughing, is being the center of attention, is more expressive, more assertive. Don't presume that their life is fine. They have more resources to cope up with a situation, but the inner details you are not aware of it. So please don't judge. Introvert, a few things. Number one thing is on a cognitive level. I don't work on a cognitive level, but I believe this message is reaching out to a wider population. So the cognitive level, a lot of biases that we carry. People are thinking about us. They will negatively evaluate me. It will be catastrophic if I spill something on my shirt, or if I stutter a little bit, or if I'm not getting a conversation topic. It's catastrophic. So such level of attaching catastrophic expectations or consequences to small struggles of failures is something that you need to be consciously aware of and change.
Mostly you're imagining the future, right? And making
Yes,
it as if it's going to be bad. And that starts affecting your psychology, physiology.
perfectly right. Catastrophic expectation, catastrophizing, anticipation. And that's what we are designed to do, right? Because we are constantly trying to keep ourselves safe. So we're anticipating what might happen that might hurt us or that might make us re-experience something that we have already gone through previously in our experiences. Fear is fearing something that we have already experienced. It doesn't start all of a sudden. So I'm fearing humiliation. I'm already being humiliated. If I'm fearing exclusion, I've already been excluded. And we keep fearing the same consequence. I'm not saying stop fearing. I'm saying balance between the caution and what I like to enjoy. So that will involve
Again,
a
it's
little
awareness,
honesty.
right, Nimesh? It comes down to
Awareness.
being aware that you are fearful. It's a great, like, it's literally an
Perfect.
aha moment that most of us don't understand. That
Yeah.
you have to just recognize that actually I am fearful, and then your whole the way you operate itself with yourself changes. And I've seen that with my
Absolutely.
own self in
Mm.
many occasions. That it's just about realizing and saying, hey, actually this is what it is,
Right.
and it really helps you deal with things very very differently. So far, to summarize, it's being aware. That's the
Mm.
most critical first step. The
Oh,
second, essentially, you talked about is regulation, right? How do you calm
regulation.
yourself? Use a lot of breath techniques across different
Mm.
situations. I think breath
Mm.
breath just
Mm.
rules, right? And what else can people do?
Yeah, so a lot more conscious control over the body that will help us calm us down. The breathing exercise, yoga, relaxation exercises, or sharing.
Hmm.
People have an ability to make us feel calm. Share more, but when you're sharing, remember you're taking something from someone, remember to give it back. It has to be reciprocity, not one way street where you're taking, and burdening the person. And it has to be a balance between self regulation and seeking support. Otherwise, you're going to burn out your resources and they're going to um, uh, move away from you in that particular bond. This is more important for introverts. Introverts also have a lot of these
Yeah.
misunderstandings. Like, um, for example, there are these certain beliefs that they hold on to, like I'm better than everyone. I only engage in intellectual conversations. No, it's not true. At the heart of it, the being, we are designed, half of our brain is designed towards experiencing pleasure and fun, and
Yeah.
the other half is regulation. It's just a balance.
That's so nice. That's beautiful. And I think it's a
Mm.
very critical message in today's world, because
Yeah,
we really end up taking things too seriously, right?
agree. We
So,
all like to have fun.
yeah.
We have the small topics. The biggest contributor to the biggest contributor to one not seeking out the need is the sense of worthlessness and undeservingness that we sometimes tends to feel within us. I'm not good enough, or people are going to reject me, and we come up with our different standards to tackle that shame, flee that shame, I say. And I have to be perfect. I have to be the perfect friend. I have to be the perfect child. I have to only engage in productive intellectual activities. And you apply the same standards on other people. I will only like those people who are serious. Um, that's not what you want. That's not what need to be expected from other people. You're actually fleeing away from your shame. You have to, along with fear, along with loneliness, there needs to be a great deal of awareness about shame. How we restrict and limit ourselves because we feel somewhere we are not good enough. That's one of the most important psychological contributors to loneliness. One of my favorite uh, researcher, one of my role models is Brené Brown. And she says shame is the most important, silent, most powerful factor that makes a person hold back, restrain himself or herself from fulfilling the need of companionship or need of intimacy. So the person is left with two choices. Either I struggle in loneliness and avoid social situations where I might be rejected, or I I feel rejected and feel ashamed. When it comes to these two choices, they always choose loneliness because it's a little more bearable than shame. So people are actually trying to protect themselves from shame by compromising on one of the most important need, that is the need to connect with other people.
But shame, if I understand it right, and through my own experience and learning, shame is a learned behavior, and shame is something you develop pretty early. People teach you to be ashamed, right, of yourself. That the language that is used from parents towards children, largely, or teachers towards students, is you have to be ashamed. Particularly in convent educational institutions, this is a very clear behavioral thing that they teach you, that you need to be ashamed because you did something wrong.
Right.
And that sort of, as you grow up, you hold on to that, feeling, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But somewhere I feel that as you become an adult, like you mentioned, the learned behavior can be unlearned also, right? And we can overcome feeling that way as well.
Well, shame is contributed to by guilt. You said, I did something wrong. What if I wasn't loved? What if I wasn't listened to? What if I was not seen? What if I was not heard enough? We have an evolutionary tendency to take responsibility because we cannot disrupt the structure that we were born into. If we disrupt the structure and we keep questioning all the parental figures, teachers, caregivers, the structure which ensures the survival will be disturbed and our survival will be at risk, will be jeopardized. So we have an evolutionary tendency or a vulnerability to take responsibility. So if we were not loved enough, if we were not heard enough, I am responsible. That's not purely a learned behavior. It's an emotion that starts accumulating within us.
Yeah.
To overcome that shame, it takes a lot of work. If you're struggling with a lot of shame, I believe depression is all about self-criticism. We hate ourselves. And that contributes to loneliness. And if it's like a sense of shame that you're not able to overcome, even when sharing with other people or even when people are validating you around, then take more professional, more streamlined intervention. But it's a silent killer, more dangerous than loneliness, I would say. And it's one of the main factors why we don't pursue what we need, pursue love. We feel this nagging sense of not good enough, I'm undeserving. I can't even question other people. We subject ourselves to abuse and unfairness from other people because I'm not even deserving enough to raise my voice. That's how chronic and painful shame can be. So introverts have to be aware of these factors, regulation, these biases that they carry, the belief, the standards that you use to evaluate yourself and everyone around, lack of importance to fun. Social space is a transaction. You give something and you take something back. You have to give. It cannot be a one-way street.
Yeah.
So suppose you have a bunch of people, you can't keep telling them, I will only do these things. I will only sit at home and watch something, or I will only go to some isolated place. You have to be able to be in a position where you partake in their preferred activities also. Fun activities. It might be a little uncomfortable for you. So get out of your comfort zone and start learning activities, getting a little used to activities which are a little more fun, dancing, being a little bit uncomfortable in public spaces. But you have to give to take.
Yeah.
It cannot be a one-way street. So I tell people to participate in theatre, salsa classes, any such activities which make you a little uncomfortable, but later on you will learn to regulate yourself, but it will ensure a space where your needs are being fulfilled.
So I think to summarize, Nimesh, just so that we really clear, right? Few steps that people can really take. One is awareness that we talked about. The second, essentially, is regulation. Do a lot of breath work. Sometimes exercise that can also lead to good movement of the body, which leads to positivity.
Especially before going into a social space.
Great, that's a great tip. And that's great advice actually. And the third thing that you mentioned was essentially talk to people. Just try to sort of reach out, but also give back when they have a need. Listen to them.
Absolutely.
Fourthly, you mentioned get intervention. Talk to a psychologist, a counselor, whoever it is who could really guide you from a professional angle, and ultimately take small steps in your life that can actually lead you to be more social, which is participate in group activities like dancing, painting, whatever you like, be in nature. Social spaces.
Increase your exposure. Increase the trials and errors. That's where extroverts have an advantage, because they are more exposed, more trial and error happening. Even if one works out of 20 attempts, that will make a difference. Extroverts, I have a separate messaging for them. You have a lot of people. Don't be under the misunderstanding that having people is equivalent to not being lonely. Having meaningful relationship is equivalent to not being lonely. Audit your relationship. Audit the loyalty that you show to other people. When you say, I understand other people, ask yourself, do you understand yourself? Are you forgetting yourself to have people around me, because I believe having people will make me less lonely. Most importantly, question the loyalty bit a little bit, because no loyalty is complete without some party compromising a little bit. So when you compromise on what I need, what I want from other people, the quality of our relationships, the quality of our expectations, how important it is for the other people to address our needs. We compromise on all these things. Question, even with family, I would say. Question your relationship with your family also. Don't, if you keep saying, I understand everyone around, I would ask you, do you understand yourself, even in the context of a family? Because you can't survive in a space where you're completely loyal. You keep forgetting yourself, you keep forgetting your pain, you forget what I need, and those will be reflected in other social spaces.
No, that's so beautiful. So as we inch closer to the end of the podcast, for me, I felt like I've gone back to college and sat in a beautiful lecture and learned so many amazing things. And it's not an easy topic to define, right, at the end of the day. But I really like what you said, which is it's ultimately a feeling. Loneliness is a feeling of abandonment, because one of my needs is not being met. So that was really, really very, very simple to understand.
I'm born with this need. There's no option.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my last aspect that I want to, sort of, talk to you about is, what is your advice to people who might be lonely today, or at the edge of actually moving into that zone of feeling lonely?
Immediate advice is evaluate your relationships. And even if you find one person who's willing to listen and acknowledge the issue that you're feeling is legitimate and valid, seek help. Seek help with that person. Seek advice. Stop suffering in isolation. Come out somewhere and start expressing what you're struggling with, so that more people can advise you with regards to what to do. So somewhere break the cycle of isolation and suffering in alone, and reach out to someone or some agency, something like a manager also. I don't mind if it's, because a lot of these corporates have employment wellness programs. Like that. Reach out to someone and don't keep feeling comfortable in your isolated space, or in a space where you avoid everything else just because you're temporarily feeling safe. Over a period of time, you're going to start feeling the heaviness of loneliness, and it's going to impact you. One of the main reasons for substance abuse is this chronic state of loneliness, because we have to somehow suppress a need, and at the same time we have to suppress the adrenaline because the body is threatened. So it's you're using external substances to regulate two very powerful movements that's happening in the body, and that will lead to other major problems and undermine your quality of life.
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful. And I think one does not have to be lonely or alone. They can really reach out, right? So, on that note, I can't believe more than an hour has gone by. It's been really, really enriching having you over. And I hope you enjoyed your first podcast, Nimesh.
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for the opportunity, Mohana.
Wonderful. So, thank you for being on Vitamin B, and we'll hope to get you back soon.
Sure. Thank you.